So let me ask a question because again, in preparation for this interview, and candidly, just having some conversations with other folks in the community, good friends of mine who are Black. I think one of the things that I've heard, not consistently, but a few times since the George Floyd incident, is we're getting tired. In particular, George Floyd has caused a very healthy uproar in conversation, but and I can think of one conversation in particular, actually two, who've said, Eric, as a Black man, I'm getting really exhausted of having the conversations of what it's like to be a Black man. And from my perspective, I think Aaron and I echo that to see change, this has to be everyone's problem. But how does the non-Black community learn about the struggles that the Black community has gone through for literally hundreds of years? If that statement that I've begun to hear a few times of we're exhausted having the conversation, where do not black and white, but where do we go as a society from here to develop change? And Aaron, I think maybe the same question goes to you, because I don't expect you to be the one guy with the answer, Brandon.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, with due respect to your friend, I strongly disagree. I don't think you can get tired of explaining what it's like. Here's my narrow opinion is for a lot of people, there's two things happening now. Okay, so we've always had racism, right, and injustices and stuff like that. But now we have social media. Everybody has a phone. You can simply get the information out faster. That's really all that's happening, right? I mean, I got pulled over. I'll say let's let's call it a dozen times, okay, just in the last like 5 6 years for no reason, okay. But I didn't videotape it and I didn't post it, so it's not a and thank God I didn't get physically harmed, right? So the first thing is it's just more social media. But the other thing is, and that I think we have to take into account, and this is an awesome conversation that I had with someone in preparation for the other video we did, is that we have a tendency, even with COVID, right? We have a tendency as people to think that what's happening is happening to someone else, always. And we can easily disassociate ourselves with it. When COVID was in Italy and Europe and China, how many people in America really cared about it? How many people were concerned with getting a test? How many people were concerned with being shut in, right? But what happened when it came here? When it came here, we start putting up digital tracking boards. Who's got tested? Who has illness, right? It's because it hit home. To me, it's the same thing for racism or anything else that I want to understand. I'm not saying it's right, but I will say it's more meaningful when it hits home. I have a better chance of understanding what it's like to be a gay or lesbian person from talking to a gay or lesbian person. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's not my life. I'm not going to know unless I talk to them, and I have no way of gaining understanding. Right now, you can't become Black, and you can't go backwards 300 years. But the only way you can gain some sort of appreciation is by trying to put yourself in certain situations, right? So that requires me to explain it to you. That requires us to have these hard conversations. And so I don't want to seem, like I'm against it, but I disagree with that. I think every person that wants someone to help them, because that's how I view this. I view this as we as Black people want other people to help us move forward. I think for everyone that has that as an expectation, then you have to have some skin in the game. You got to be willing to tell the story. You got to be willing to help people understand.
So I'm curious, and I have a question because I think back, and I'm gonna tip my hand a little bit in terms of age, but I was pretty young when the tape came out of Rodney King being beaten by police officers.
Mm-hmm.
And so my perception of that was certainly skewed by age. but it feels like that was a similar experience of the nation's eyes being open to something that I think folks kind of thought happened, but had never really seen. They didn't have that experience because they hadn't lived that experience. And that took away the fantasy. It stripped it away. That being said, it feels like that the reaction publicly back then was very much focused in the Black community. I mean, I remember there being jokes on late night television about the beating of Rodney King, which in hindsight is insane. And at the time, for whatever reason, it felt like that was something that a national televised program could do. And so I think there's a question about, has there been anything that's fundamentally changed between then and now that has made our society, specifically non-Black communities, more able or willing to sort of see this stuff? My question for you is, in your experiences, does it feel like there have been fundamental changes since then, or does it feel like, there's just more of it now, and so it's less ignorable because of the social things like that?
That's an outstanding question, and I'll give you my opinion. I think there have been, and I hate this because it's going to sound like I'm blaming a source, so I'm going to try to clean this up. I think there have been more publicized experiences, more videotaped experiences, and unfortunately, we don't. Media in our country does not do well with happy life is great things. Okay, we sell controversy, we sell division, we sell hatred, and I think there's been pockets of progress, but since you don't hear about them, it doesn't seem like they exist at all. But I will also tell you something, and this is not, I'm not a psychologist. I will tell you my theory on something because I shared this recently, not on camera. Something did happen with this last particular incident, because with Rodney King, with Trayvon Martin, with everything else, there was an uproar, there was outrage, there was protest, and we leveled off. Then something else happened weeks later. Then there was outrage, and it was like, oh, well, that's a Southern problem. And then it happened in the North. Okay, whoa. Then it was, oh, that's an LA problem. Everybody knows those cops are bad, So and then it happened in on the East, right? So one of the things that I think that we've talked about but not openly talked about is, and I'm not saying it's right, I'm just saying I believe this happened. When you look at the last instances of the people that were killed, there was always something in there, even though it was right. There was something in there that a person could rationalize if they wanted to, like, oh, if you hadn't done this, or remember we talked before about like training people how to do on a car stop, right? Well, this person was a criminal. You always see that stuff come out after the fact. Well, they were a bad person. Well, this person was doing this. And this person, had a weapon. Maybe they didn't have a weapon. Oh, we thought it was a weapon. Oh, this person didn't listen. They didn't stop right away, And then you saw people on social media going, well, when the cop says stop, you stop, or you put your hands up. I think with all the ones leading up to George Floyd, there was always something, even though it made absolutely no damn sense, there was always something. If I, as a human being, don't want to believe that there's racism, I don't want to believe that the police are, as an institution, are exercising brutal force, right? No one wants to believe that. So I would latch on as a human being to the one thing that I could say, well, if you hadn't done that, you would have been good. Or if you had, I think that's what the mass of people are doing. The problem with that is this most recent incident has nothing.
Yeah.
It has nothing you can look at. And regardless of his character, crime, or whatever, right, at the point where this happened, he's handcuffed, laying on the ground, not a threat to anyone.
Yep. 8 minutes and 36 seconds.
Exactly. Repeated people around saying, hey, stop this. He's the man himself tell you, I'm dying. I can't breathe, right? Yeah. So I think that was a rude stark awakening for a lot of people, because there's nothing you can say that make sense.